Awesome. Thanks for having us back. And I'll just pivot right off of what Sean said. I worked at HubSpot, been at HubSpot, was at, been part of the HubSpot ecosystem for a while. I've got a slide that'll say that. But Bob had a lot of experience and was a local guy in something that I wanted to really dedicate my career to. And I just spent the last like 15 months reinventing myself around, which is putting on really engaging events, virtual events in particular, because there's this global, technological, highly integrated with marketing component to it. And I met Bob through another B2B community that maybe some of you folks are part of called Exit 5, started by another guy who used to work at HubSpot for B2B marketers, Dave Gerhardt, founder of it. So if anybody else from Exit 5, shout out to Exit 5. But I met cool people like Bob. And I'm like, wow, Bob, you have built a whole business around doing this and you're in Boston. Like we have to know each other. So Bob and I have been co-marketing and talking at different groups just about our collective thoughts and experiences that we've each been doing separately and now are collaborating on together around how to do virtual events well. So you're going to hear stories from me. You're going to hear stories from Bob. He's used HubSpot. I've used HubSpot. We've done things outside of the platform and stuff like that. And just to suffice to say, you folks already pretty much know how to use HubSpot. You know where the resources are, how to use HubSpot. So we're not going to eat up your time with like, here's where the forms tool is and stuff like that. We're talking about how to put on a great event that you can use the campaign tools and things like that you know how to do to get the word out around. So Bob, with that said, that sounded a good tee up, sir. We're going to go jump into this puppy here. You ready to roll, sir?
We are ready to roll.
All right, guys. So this is now Sean already nailed it. Like Sean blew this out of the water with a great warm up here, but I still think some of us did enjoy the chat. So why don't we use the chat here and tell us, who are you? What's your name and your company? We want to warm it up here. We're not here to talk at you the whole time, at least not mental, not in our hearts. We want to commune with you. So if you want to tell us what's your name, what's your company, and give us a shout out if you're a HubSpot partner. HubSpot partners make the HubSpot user group community go round. So give us a shout out, say it loud, say it proud. If you are a HubSpot solutions partner, that's very cool. Also, where you're joining from, I'm calling from Norwell, Massachusetts, about a 40-minute drive south, down on the South Shore of Boston. What about you, Bob?
Yeah, I'm in the Metro West area of Boston,
West.
And I made sure I used this last time as prop. I have my Red Sox mug, so
come on,
whether
now.
You like Boston or not,
come on now.
Yeah,
then, we're meeting up for lunch.
Yankees fans are welcome even in New England, right?
Yeah. Shout out to Dedham. Anybody here, Dedham? Yeah.
Milford,
okay. Milford, Tony Paye and Sean. I want to thank Tony and Sean again, both Bob and I do, for inviting us on to be a part of this. And then also give us a shout out. Let's level set amongst ourselves. Have you ever hosted a virtual event before? Maybe you're here like, I'm a total novice, or maybe you're like, yeah, I do this all the time. Bob and I can adjust in real time and take this thing up, take this thing down, or make sure we don't leave anybody behind, or spin our wheels with stuff you already know foundationally. And also, this would be cool to know, give yourself a little plug too, is do you have a virtual event coming up? Do you want to drop the landing page in for that? Maybe get some feedback from people as we go. But would love to know who you are, where you're at. Is our virtual events totally new to you? Have you done them before? And maybe you got one coming up to keep in mind for this. And then I'm not going to belabor this point, but Sean, thank you. I'm bound next month, 3 weeks away. This is the only slide from the inbound deck I will show you. I had to sign an agreement saying I will not present any of the material that's going to be in that deck, because it's got to be all original and new. But I'll just use this as an excuse to tell you, yes, I've worked at HubSpot for 5 years, worked at leading HubSpot solutions partners. I've loved speaking at inbound, helping people succeed. And like I said, I've been drawn to people like Bob and networking with other people now around being a host for virtual events. The front end of the shop is what I really love. Ever since I was a DJ in college up to being a HubSpot Academy professor, virtual event host at Drift, and working for clients and other startups and nonprofits, and then networking with other webinar pros like Bob, who's helped me realize, I love that front of the shop, the content and the performance side. And that's what you're going to hear me talk about in a few minutes for this little show that Bob and I have for you. And Bob's very good at the marketing strategy, the overall system that we're going to build around it, and making sure that great show gets, first of all, promoted really well in our marketing systems, but then also gets a great follow-up as well. And he's going to talk to you about the 3-step system. So thank you all for joining us today. I've got some experiences to share, and Bob's going to give his introduction and background the proper way, which is via story. He's got a couple of anecdotes coming up here in just a moment before I dish it to him. So if you're going to inbound, give us a shout out too. If you're going to inbound, let's get excited about that. September 5th, I'm presenting Beyond the Booth B2B sales strategies for field events. So excited to kind of get warmed up with the conversation that Bob and I are having with you guys today. So without further ado, Bob, I'd like to toss it to you, and maybe you can set the stage for us. Like, what's the challenge? What's the tension here? What are we all after here with trying to put on better virtual events and being masters there?
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Nick. And
Yes,
then we're just looking at the chat. Looks like we have some novices here, as well as somebody's about to launch a full webinar series for the compliance software. So we'll try and cover kind of foundational elements that will work for both of you. And then, this being a relatively small group, throw your questions in the chat, and then also we'll sort of get into some case studies at the end, and there'll be your cases and questions. So basically, I look at events. I mean, Nick and I obviously both love events of all types. I got started just haphazardly in my career, working at seminars and doing executive meetings. And then when I was the head of a small Series A startup company with literally no marketing budget, I said, okay, well, I know how to do events, and there's this thing called webinars out there. Let me try those. And then we immediately helped scale that business 20x in 4 years through weekly webinars, when we had to describe, what is a webinar? It's a web seminar, right? But if you look at like HubSpot's, especially HubSpot surveys of B2B marketers, as well as other B2B marketing surveys, what do you see year after year? What works the best? Well, the Coke of B2B marketing is in-person events. And then the Pepsi is virtual events. So basically, every year, those two events show up as number one or number two as effectiveness. But as Nick outlined, there's a whole bunch of challenges in terms of tapping into that second most popular and effective marketing vector, in that we've all attended virtual events where either it's the small crowd or it's not the right crowd, or you put a lot of work into it and the follow-up isn't there, or the presentation falls flat. So we want to avoid those mistakes. So let's say, moving on to the next spot. So a good way of an icebreaker is to start like a story. So if we were at a comedy show or something like that, I'd say, well, I was on my way to the stage and this happened. Well, last weekend, on my way to the virtual stage today, knowing that I was going to present to the HubSpot group, I was in New York City, and I was really, if you look at the billboard there, I was kind of like right below that, near Hudson Yards. And this billboard actually faces Hudson Yards, which is a brilliant placement, because that's some of the most wealthy financial people in the world, and obviously they'd be users and investors. But the billboard's there, and I couldn't get a picture. I'm like, oh, this would be a great way, great tie into my presentation on Thursday. So I walked down by the water, which is close to where you are, and I'm like, there's got to be like a building or something I can get up in. So I saw an aircraft carrier was there, and it was actually a museum. And I said, I bet if I get up on that flight deck of the aircraft carrier, then I can take this picture, which is what I did. But of course, it's a museum. It's the Intrepid Museum, which is a great visit for family and individuals alike. But basically, I was able to take an elevator all the way up to the flight deck, and it only cost me a couple of bucks to get this picture and then write off my trip and everything, and have a story for you guys. But a lot of times we approach virtual events, it's like, well, I've seen them work really well, but it seems like impossible growth, maybe impossible to do, but actually it's easy. So you guys, as HubSpotters, as people that are running the HubSpot platform, I would say you've got 50% of this all covered. And then we're gonna tell you the three things that you need to know, the three pieces of a framework that will help you create new markets with virtual events, to have virtual events that engage your audience, where you can build an evergreen series, where you can create long form content that rocks into videos as well as short form content. So I think you're halfway there, and then we'll just share with you three things that we've learned over the years. And basically, if you look at my hair up here, I have a lot of gray hair, and basically that's all from each virtual event I've done working with clients. Each one gave me a gray hair, so that's why I have 2,000 gray hairs now. So here's our three things you need to know to carry forward here. So I'm going to read this, and I want you to read this slide. and this is the only slide we're going to ask you to read all the way through, but this framework that we're about to share ensures your webinars and virtual events using HubSpot aren't just informational sessions, but strategic tools that drive business results enabled by HubSpot, right? So 3 things. We're going to leverage the formula that you likely know. One of the founders of HubSpot actually lives in my town. And I have read a lot of his stuff. And if you know inbound marketing, this is a formula that we're changing the riff a little bit to make it easy to remember. But if you can attract, engage, and convert, but use virtual events to do that, it's a good formula. So first, you want to attract your ideal customer or your target audience to your specific event with your promotions and compelling topics. Engage them both emotionally and rationally during the event. And Nick is a master of that. And he's going to share, his, basically equivalent of 50 years of wisdom in 5 minutes. And then you want to convert. And this is going to be the easy part for anybody with HubSpot is, okay, we just run our HubSpot conversion system. And that's how we can translate the webinar interest that we get, our webinar registrants into revenue, right? Webinar registrants into revenue. So we'll start with the track. So actually right next door to the USS Intrepid there in New York City was a ship that looked like this. It was about to go on a cruise up to Canada. So it's also the ship from the Love Boat, or at least that's what comes up. We search through AI and get an image, right? So we'll go with it. But anyway, so if you remember back to the 1970s, and I'm old enough to remember a little bit like TV and reruns and that kind of thing, the media landscape at the time was what a lot of people think of when they approach virtual events, right? They think of, oh, well, I'm going to do a virtual event. Yeah, we can invite partners. We can invite customers. We can invite people that don't know us. We can invite people on our list. So they try and create a virtual event that's similar to the media landscape of the 1970s, which was broadcasting and not narrowcasting, right? So the number one way that as we advance here, the number one way that we're going to attract our audience is to think narrowcasting rather than broadcasting, right? So what does that mean? You want to focus on a single objective with a specific audience, with a specific problem at a specific stage of the funnel, rather than trying to appeal to everyone. And then the great thing about events like this is you can try one, get 20, 50, 100, 1,000 people there and say, okay, well, did it reach our objectives? And we can even try it to, let's say, we can use A/B test in HubSpot, and we can try it to 20% of our database and test and pilot something before we scale out to an entire market, an entire marketing budget, right? But part of that is also thinking nowcasting is, what is the single channel that's going to drive attendance to my next event, right? So you need at least one, but before you start your next event, think, what am I going to use? And obviously, if you have a nice top of funnel list within HubSpot, you could say, well, let me do a mid funnel event, or let me do a bottom of the funnel event, and my primary audience will be those folks that are already in HubSpot, and I can identify specifically who those folks are. Right.
And Bob, it's also important to be like 3-handed, right? As our example is here on the left. You need to be able to think as well as type.
Yeah, I left that in. That's a cool AI thing. But I kind of thought of that as, okay,
and AI is cool, man.
Yeah. So the target market for my next event is going to be the 3-handed marketer, and I'm going to have probably an audience of 1, but I'm going to get that person there because I can target it right there. And then the other thing that I learned early on with seminars is when we were doing these road shows and everything, and we were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on these events, is we wanted to be able to get ROI. So we said, do we want to, again, try and have multiple objectives per event, or do we want to be very specific? So we did these top of funnel events, and we actually didn't invite salespeople to the event. So we said, we just want to position ourselves as educational in the marketplace. Let's invite an outside speaker or do a panel like we talked about in the Q&A. But if you just have one specific objective and think of that, you got starting point is, okay, am I starting with top of funnel, mid funnel, or bottom of funnel? Who am I going to appeal to? And let me just take those folks to the next step. And we'll give examples of that. But
yeah, and I'll just give a shout out here for all of us HubSpot users. You can, of course, build lists for who you're going to reach out and invite. So if you follow what Bob's saying and you have that one objective and you have that target audience, there's probably going to be some people on that list of your target audience that you can approach from executive to executive about that target objective you're trying to solve for them. So there should be a list of who are the people that we're going to deliver that message. We're going to hook them around that objective. Like our C-suite is going to reach out. These are like founding attendees we want. Then there might be another list in HubSpot. You're going to say, these are personalized sales invites. We're going to put some personalization in these. We're going to try to personalize this objective around this particular account because this segment of our target audience, very important. We know them. They're already mid-funnel, like Bob's saying, or whatever. And then there's another list, which is we're going to position this objective a little bit more broadly because these contacts we are not in sales cycles with. We haven't sold to them before yet. We don't know them as well. And then there's also how are we going to position that one objective towards our target audience when we do programmatic ads around this event, around LinkedIn and so on. You want to have a list to collect that as well. So one objective, probably one channel even. These are email-driven invites, let's say, and backed up by all the other channels, of course. And then you got a list to collect those. Just want to throw that in there for you, Bob.
Excellent. And I'll give you an example. So I know there's HubSpot partners here. I was an agency, had done I followed one of the founders of HubSpot Employee 5's advice and used inbound marketing and generated 7,500 names, but was starting to see a lot of competition with pay-per-click and SEO at the time. And basically I was in charge of a partnering agency and charge of business development. So okay, so I've done webinars in the past, done webinars for clients. So what should I do? Well, let me follow my own advice. So I said, all right, I'm going to take those 7,500 names. Most of them are stuck in the funnel. So up until that point, the metrics that I had tracked were roughly 50 clients from the inbound efforts. And I didn't think, okay, over the next couple of years, I'm going to get another 50 clients with inbound alone. So I need something else. I need something quick, and I need it cheap and fast. So basically what I said is, all right, let me take 20% of the database, all those stuck names, and let me try a single webinar next week for 30 minutes. Initially, it was live, and then it became virtual live. And basically, we did the same presentation, but I was able to test it to 20% of the database over a period of weeks. And it worked, and then scale it out to the 7,500 names. And the net was turned all those inbound leads, doubled the conversion into clients. So basically got another 50 clients just from those mid-funnel names. And then that's when it starts to get interesting as you say, okay, well then let's fix the top of the funnel with the inbound, right? So everybody's in an inflection point right now where, well, Google's going away and LLMs, that's coming, but we don't know where those leads are coming from. So in the meantime, you can introduce a strategy like this. But the reason that this worked is because we went out and tested through A/B tests, different topics, different email subject lines to the same presentation that was lightly tailored. And the objective was just to initially take the folks that are already on the list, that are already certainly not hot leads, but warm leads, and just get them to appointments. But that's one thing that everybody can do next week is apply that to your HubSpot database and then just figure out, okay, well, that's going to work for a year, but then let me make sure that I'm getting new folks into the list to backfill.
I love this, Bob, because I haven't met a HubSpot customer yet who has been using the tool, converting leads and stuff like that from the database, who doesn't have a mid-funnel problem, like this leads stuck in the middle of the funnel there. And like you say, you just experiment with doing this very short, informal against 20% of the list versus this has got to be ready to shotgun this to the entire list. And let's hope it appeals to every single one of them. Really cool idea.
Right. And then it's multiplication. So one reason that I like virtual events is because, like, let's say we're trying to reach all the HubSpotter population. Well, yeah, we could go to inbound, but how do we reach them the rest of the year? How do we reach the folks that aren't there, right? So virtual events are a great way of really reaching the entire addressable market.
Amen. So folks, Bob and I talked about this and we try to walk the walk here. We'd like to make this interactive with you. And so whether you write this down in chat and share with everybody what your answers might be here, you jot it down on a notepad, you type it up in your own Google Doc. We'd like to just take a moment here and think about how can we actually apply what we just heard? How can we not just walk away with this another hour where a couple of things sunk in? I might keep that in mind, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. can we write something down here? How could you narrowcast your next successful event? Who would be the ideal client profile? Do you have one of those that you could kind of shorthand mention? Upper mid-market or something like that, mid-funnel. Main topic, pain point to address. Does anybody know what that is? Can you write that out? Or even what your guess is? And again, is this a top of the funnel? And again, you might subscribe to the flywheel, but I think us as marketers kind of know what we mean when we say more top of the funnel, more gathering and research. Are they in the consideration phase, let's say, to skip the funnel metaphor, the decision phase? What about that? Because Bob's right. It'll be very hard to narrowcast and test against the list if you are trying to catch everybody who's ever in any stage of information gathering. The webinar will be too watered down. And then what's that main channel? And that's tough for us too, right? We'll do all of them. And you find yourself missing your email send deadline because you're scrambling to get the social post up. But if email is where it's at because you have email contacts, then you should be making that the best email could possibly be with A/B tests and workflows and stuff like that, drip campaigns. If you don't have a lot of good lists yet, then an email list, you may go hard on the ad, right? This is an acquisition event, like Bob said, more top of the funnel. We want people to get to know us and get in touch with us to get more free info. So maybe think about this. Does anybody want to share any of their answers to this? Feel free. But again, we just want to take a beat and swing it over to you. How does this apply to you? Who's your ICP? What's the pain point? Where are they at in that decision journey to solving that pain? And how are you going to reach them? Top priority. All right. So with the sake of time, we'll advance ahead, but hopefully you folks are taking some notes there on the side. And again, we can talk to you about this afterwards too. So I'll go through briefly now the second phase, engaging them with the head and the heart. And when we're virtual, the bar for keeping someone engaged is much higher because we know our competition is you clicking over to just the next window. You could be multitasking right now. A lot of times you think you had 40 people show up to the webinar, but you really had like 30 people paying attention. The other 10 were wandering around or, doing something else. So engaging the heart immediately is important. And I just wanted to throw out a couple of ideas. This phrase, like get in their kitchen, like get intimate. And one way to help you think about that is like, if you could make this virtual event topic for one person, who would it be? And also, can you phrase it as a question? Have you ever been in this situation? Have you ever seen this? And these are just a few examples. Like for my inbound deck, I open up with this. Because I've heard this, I've said this, haven't we all? They asked for this event, said it was crucial for sales, and I did it. I helped put it on, but then nobody showed up. Suddenly we're all scrambling to fill seats, even though sales said, if you help us put this on, we could fill seats instantly, immediately. The second slide was me taking sound bites from past clients and people I'd interviewed about reporting. And as I was saying this, you could see people leaning in. This is my situation, telling stories like Bob did at the beginning. This is an example, this third slide from another inbound talk I gave, talking about how the attitude of partners who were really grinding it out to get their first wins on HubSpot, like stories, asking questions, hooking people in, connects with them emotionally. And we need to entertain to capture attention in the event. Then we can educate and tell them about the speeds, the feeds, the offers, the discounts, the benefits, and all that type of thing. You heard us talk about this at the top when Sean did that really cool this or that, but have some engaging strategies across the event. Don't just check the box like Bob admonished us, right? Like make sure that your polls feed into the trivia, which feeds into the chat. It's all sort of integrated. And I have an example here. You can do trivia on a slide. You don't have to even master an app. There are apps out there like Kahoot and stuff like that, but just build trivia on a slide, let it build, and then give them the answer. That's always kind of fun. This was a screenshot when I was emceeing a webinar for SmartBug. We just paused to take some audience questions throughout, and then here's a cue. Again, we're going to go over and open up a screen, and you can now take an interactive quiz with us. And that slide just cued that was going to happen. And then I hopefully like a lot of you folks do, I go to a lot of other virtual events to see what other people are doing and how the state of the art's evolving. And there's this huge event for event professionals last month called Eventastic. I took this screenshot where they had a networking breakout where sometimes especially virtually, I'm like, what's that going to be like? Who's going to be in there? But they said, hey, if you just go in there for 10 minutes, interact a little bit, we'll donate some money to charity. And last event, we raised a lot of money. I'm like, that's kind of cool. All right, I'll go for charity. So putting intrigue like that's interesting. Giving them challenges, just giving them an opportunity to be heard is powerful. And then Bob and I are big fans of this. I think this is one of the number one things if you're going to try to get help and you want to bring in expertise, it's to help build something like this, a run of show, or abbreviated as ROS, which is going to lay out like minute by minute, cue by cue, transition by transition, who's going to do what, who's going to be in charge of that, what will the MC say, who has to hit play, who will advance the slide, where is the link, all that should be laid out so that you folks, next time you're putting on an event, not all those roads are leading to you. Hey, sales says someone's trying to get into the webinar. What do we do? It's like, I'm in the middle of putting the thing on. I can't talk to you about that. Like, we made a sheet. You have to refer to this, right? So this will really help you from a project management standpoint. Any other words of wisdom around the power of the run of show, Bob, to throw in here?
No, I was thinking, as you know, I would have another idea. I was thinking you could apply this sort of same process to your marketing, because what we find is if you have like 5 channels where you're promoting, probably one's going to work better than the others, and it might surprise you, and you can test different things. So I would apply the same level of sort of project management to both the run of show as well as the pre-show, and then the post-show. Ideally, you want to plan ahead as to how you're going to follow up with the leads. But I would say that one of the big things that you can do with the webinars is whether you have 10 people or 10,000, I don't know what the biggest webinar would be or biggest virtual event, but you do want to have one of these run of shows where you plan like, oh, this is what's going to happen in every 5 minutes and how we're going to interact with folks. And then even just what questions you're going to ask. Because every time you ask a question to the audience, they're answering in their head. Socratic method. It works.
Yep. So I'll just pause briefly because I think you guys might know them. SmartBug, they're one of HubSpot's top solutions partners in North America. And, this is my backyard. I love HubSpot and doing virtual events in the inbound arena. So they were putting on an event where they wanted to sort of show the audience that they were going a little bit above and beyond. So they put out for an MC from the HubSpot ecosystem, myself. So it's almost like saying there's a party, there's gonna be a DJ there. Oh, I didn't know it was that type of party. Cool. So here's like, we're getting an MC, because also there's a few different moving parts. There's SmartBug presenting, Agent AI, which is kind of sort of HubSpot adjacent, was presenting. HubSpot product managers are presenting, and I know some of these people. So they wanted to have an MC that would, again, help. Bob alluded to this at the top of our call together, like that there's sometimes some rough edges that can come in from different organizations, different slide formats. People are running into this production from other things. So being able to help them all smooth that out, created a more entertaining and engaging experience. And then also we came up with cues, like I alluded to earlier, Q&A, do this little interactive quiz. Let's watch this live demo, try this thing out, sign up for this free offer right now, that type of thing. Because we wanted to do they wanted to do a multi-series, and they wanted to do the event was longer. It was like 2 hours. So we had to work hard to keep people focused and engaged throughout that time, and then coming back event. We pulled it off, and it was fun, and we captured a lot of great content and built strong relationships with these other organizations for SmartBug in the process of doing that. So without all that said, that's my little inspirational story as well. How can you engage your audience at your next event? So I ask you to write down, if you can, how am I going to engage these people before the event? Glad that Bob brought that up. I think table stakes these days, if you're an event producer, you have a little event social promo kit. Here's a rough write-up. Could you record a little video to promote this event? Guess what our boy Sean McGauley did? He did that. He sent it to Bob and I. Hey guys, would you be interested in doing a video? Here's how we could do it. That inspired Bob to take that picture. I made a video myself. So definitely, if you want to leverage the brands of the speakers you're bringing on, speaker promo kits, table stakes, are you going to do that? Are you going to commit to making one of those if you haven't done that before? What about a sales enablement deck? Do you ever present to the sales team prior to your virtual event going off saying, this is the event, this is who we and you invited, this is what's going to be about, this is the unbeatable offer, here's what we need you to do to follow up, here's our challenge, are you guys up for it, you ready, any questions, here's where the sequence is, here's where the list is going to collect, here's where the deck and the recording is going to be. Do you ever present to sales? They're an audience too, right? We already talked about engaging during the event, but can you make a commitment? Which webinar tool are you going to use? What are we going to do? Polls? We're going to do chat? Hopefully both. What's the offer? How are we going to talk about the offer and engage people with that? And then after the event, have the little agreement. Bob's going to talk about this in a second. Marketing will engage with our audience using these channels and tools that we own, and then sales will engage these audiences in the way that they do it for the relevant contacts that they're focusing on. But Planning this ahead of time ensures it's actually going to happen. And you heard Bob's remind us before. We've all been there where you're terrified as to how much ROI, if any, you feel like you're going to be able to prove out of this event because sales wasn't properly mobilized before, during, and after the event.
So. Right. And Sean brings up a good point that speakers can also, if you bring in outside speakers, or even, if one of your speakers inside your company has a big following on social media and so forth, then if they promote the event, sometimes you can increase the attendance. Nick and I participated in an event that he was doing the front of the house and I was doing the back of the house, if you will, the restaurant analogy. Mm-hmm. But basically the participants generated half the registrants. We doubled registration through the individual promotion from the different speakers.
Think about that, what Bob just said. If we don't mobilize the speakers, we could potentially be losing half of the potential participants who could be there, like new names, all that. So Bob, for the sake of time, because we got about 14 minutes left, do you want to talk about the all-important step here, which is if we did these things,
yes,
we focused down on we narrowcasted, we engaged, we entertained, we educated.
Right.
How do we now turn this into revenue?
Okay. Just a couple quick things, and you see some HubSpot examples on the right, but when you're planning ahead of your event on the follow-up plan, a simple follow-up plan is, okay, we presented a next step or an offer on the actual event. So within 24 hours of the event, let's send out an email from HubSpot to everybody who registered with the recording of the event and then what our next step was. And then also we can segment our audience based on engagement. So for example, if you have folks that opened the invitation but did not register, well, maybe they get an extra follow-up with the webinar video and so forth. Mm-hmm. But if you think having a follow-up plan that segments your audience, following up to some degree, ideally the same day, could just be, I know many of you work on, if you do a targeted event with 10 people and 5 of them are real sales specs, well, just have whatever your sales process is, just make sure they follow up right away, maybe same day. And then also think
by the way, Bob, on that, let you folks have like your contact records in HubSpot. You can say in the workflow, if contact registers and they have an account owner is any value or a certain rep or whatever, depending on what this thing is, right? You can assign a task or a reminder, a step for that rep to follow up, like Bob's saying.
Right. And that's one reason why everybody asks about platforms, but my choice on platforms would be, well, what integrates with your marketing automation? Because you ideally want your registrants to register on your forms, your HubSpot forms, and then you want any of the data that comes from Zoom or whatever right back in real time into HubSpot, so it's right there. So that's the amazing advantage that everybody has here that uses something like HubSpot is the integrations is like half the value, right? And then you can use Zoom or whatever platform you want, just make sure it integrates back. But having following those 3 things is a good rule, but it can be, especially in your next event, just make simple follow-up, Oh, Nick, you're muted.
Sorry, I thought I clicked it, but I missed it. So totally agree with what Bob said, folks. And I want to reiterate one point he made, which is do not end your virtual event without actually making the offer. And you'd think, I thought, like, of course people would do that. But then I started working with clients and I'm like, you barely pitched it. You just you were almost like embarrassed. But if it's an unbelievable offer, like maybe the offer is something simple as what I pictured here from Eventastic. This is a really great speaker. She's out looking for clients. She's out looking to connect. She wants to just build more connections. There's a bunch of event marketers on the line. Connect with her. QR code, done. Right? But over here, lower right-hand corner, another one of my clients, their competitor, was saying, how do we sell like these guys? He's in his presentation. He's got a little iPad. He's scratching things up, writing stuff down. It felt like we were sitting at a pub together and he's just kind of sketching it out for me. Very intimate, very compelling, an unbelievable offer that's only available for a limited time only and an unbelievable guarantee. I just want to say, have an unbelievable offer established. Make sure it gets presented before you sign off, and make sure then your sales reps know that is the best gift you gave them, which is this unbelievable offer with urgency behind it that they can follow up with. It's valuable. So that's a big pitch there we wanted to make. And we've got an offer for you as well. But Bob, first tell us, as we're out here, how do we wrap this all up together to make this as easy as ABC?
Yeah, well, we're limited on time. We're going to jump into the audience questions, so I won't make you sing the ABC song, Nick. But the
Yeah, you'll have to
yeah,
cut that from the run of show, right?
yeah, right. Well, that's part of the run of show. You have it, but then
Yeah.
how do
And you can adjust. Then you can cut
right?
it from the lineup. Yeah.
So you guys all have the big head start using HubSpot. So follow these three things so we can advance: attract, engage, and convert. But remember, if you're looking for revenue, all this, which I think is the goal, you don't have to do a hard sell at your event, but ideally you want potential buyers in the room. So attract, engage potential buyers, speak to them, and then have the conversion or follow up. So if you do those three things, I think you'll be ahead of most of your competition. These are simple steps in themselves, but a lot of times we have a whole bunch of things going on and don't follow what we should.
It's true. And it can be easy. And this is an example, folks, about Bob and I came together for another HubSpot customer. There's an agency partner. And sometimes, folks, you're just busy. You know these best practices. I was helping this customer launch a referral partner program. I knew the content. I knew who I wanted to speak. I couldn't handle all of the moving parts that I knew were involved in putting on this virtual event well, along with all of the go-to-market strategy and the messaging and the coordination of the content for this event by myself. And this was the first engagement that Bob and I worked on. By working together, we were able to make something happen on a very short runway for this client that had never been able to put on their own event before, did not have HubSpot integrated with Zoom, did not have a dedicated email list. And sometimes we tell ourselves we have to have these huge outsized results in order for this virtual event to be done well. But the referral conversations, folks, these numbers, they had never produced numbers like this before. They had never gotten leads or kind of by a campaign, by a content-led campaign from their database before. And maybe that's you, maybe that's your client, but sometimes you just need some help pulling it off. And I wasn't scared to say, even though I'm all about events, I need someone like Bob to help me project manage and pull this thing off quickly and make sure I don't miss any of these moving parts. And the thing gets technically produced well, and that there's a follow-up plan in place. And I just appreciated having that partnership and some extra guidance so I could do my thing on the content side. The client was very happy, as you can see. So you too could have similar results. As we close out here, what will be your offer or your next step on your next event? We talked about the key topic against your ICP, promoted through a primary channel. You're going to have a couple of different engaging things to get people really fired up. And now you're getting your whole follow-up system ready to convert that audience, that goodwill into pipeline and revenue and sales conversations. What is going to be the number one thing you want them to do? Because this is, again, one of the great benefits of virtual events, including today. We all know where we are. We all know what we're looking at. We've all just had the same experience. That's rare nowadays in digital marketing, isn't it? They're all over the place. It's scattered, it's bifurcated or whatever. So what are we going to offer them since we know where they just were at? We know what they just saw. We know what they just did. Could you write it down for yourself? If you want to drop it in chat, go for it. We'll take questions. But what I will say is we are offering a chance to connect. This is my HubSpot. I figure you guys know me best from the HubSpot ecosystem, even though you're going to love working with Bob as well. So if you go to my website, you go to my standard contact page, I will bring Bob onto a call. If you have questions, you want to review an event. Bob and I are really just trying to do more market research here. This is no pitch. We're not going to sell you anything. We just want to understand, what is your typical virtual event challenge? What are you working on? And in exchange for your sharing that feedback to us for free, we will give you a custom playbook for free at no charge. And you can go on your way from there or keep in touch from there. It's up to you. But we wanted to walk the walk, drink our own champagne here. If you go to nextlevelinbound.com/contact Nick, it says, get us your first name, last name, email, a website URL this is pertaining to, and I'll send you a message and coordinate an appointment that all three of us can jump on, or other members of your team. So that's my offer. And with our remaining minutes, we'll take your questions. And thanks again, all of you, for being here, and for Tony and Sean for letting us come on and share some of our stories and our thoughts with you.